I made a video some years ago. It got a lot of views. It was an okay video, but it didn't really go according to the book. And it was dealing with cane that was probably a little harder. You know, that kind of cane you have to approach differently, as you've seen in any of my videos. A couple of issues that come up with this video that got a lot of views is that you really are going to have difficulty making a reed like that with hard cane. It just, hard cane and that style of reed making just don't go well together. And the other is, what the book is requiring you to do is to do several things at once, and that is to do the V, to do the slope, the definition, blending, and scraping the thin corners in the same stroke at the same time. And I find that for beginning reed makers to be just overwhelming. It makes it more difficult to understand the function of the reed and what's going on with the reed as you're scraping it. What I'd like to do is to give you just a couple of rules of thumb that I think will help a great deal. And that is, the first is pitch before tone. And the second is that when we're working with the tip, it's slope before sides. Now when we're scraping the slope, what I mean by that is it's got to be even across. Slope must be as even as you can get it across the width of the reed. So the slope should be equal across the width of the reed. And start with that. And you really kind of have to focus on the end of the reed being thinner, of course. But then you want an evenness throughout the width. It's also a good idea to get it at the proper length. And this is real important, a big step into being successful, is that slope, and that it's nice, even, and tapered. There's no dips. Let's measure the length, make sure it's about where it should be. And that is about 66, so we're in the ballpark. So we'll continue with this. Now what we do is we're going to get it till it peeps. And when you blow into the reed, use your cheeks, don't use your lungs, because you're going to hurt yourself. Just blow with your cheeks, right, to get it to peep, because it's very, it's very resistant. There's no point in blowing the reed when it's this resistant. You're going to hurt yourself. You don't want to do that. We just want to get it to peep. I'm just blowing air with my cheeks, yeah? It peeps, but it's very resistant. And that's fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to take off of the channels. Once we have it to this point, about the right length, and it's a nice slope. Now we're going to scrape some channels, and this is going to relax the reed a bit. So it's not so stressed, tense, with all the pressure that's being exerted by the strength of the gouge and the shape. Which, incidentally, that's real important that you marry the shape to the gouge. And that's the nice thing about my setup, is that it's my gouge and my shape, and they work really well together, as they should. Okay, now here we've just removed some channels, not a lot. And it should free it up quite a bit. As it does freed up nicely. I may just do a little bit more to free it up, just a little more at the end. Yeah, at the end here. Now we're going to clip it till it crows a C. And measure it as we clip to make sure that we're getting close to 70, and we're about at 71, which is very good. But it's not quite C. So we're at a C, but it's very hard again, right? If we look at it, this is what we have. And very resistant, tip still very, very thick at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the slope again to get it so that it's not so resistant. And the slope should be from the end of the heart right down to the end of the tip. And I would think about it as a straight slope, if you can, when you're scraping. And check to make sure that's what it's doing. You may not have to do as much as you think, because what we're trying to achieve is just the reed to vibrate freely. Now I'm blowing with air, right, from my lungs. The reed is much freer. We're going to do a little bit more. Make sure the knife is sharp. And see how I'm approaching it as straight across. Focus on the slope of the tip. As being even across the entire width of the reed. The slope is still there. Not a lot of definition. Mostly blended, but we'll get to that in a minute. A little flat, so now we have to clip it a tiny bit. There we are, we're back at C. Now that we've done this, we have the pitch of the reed. The length of the reed is good because we're going to be doing more, so it's just over 70. And we have the slope of the reed is looking good. Now what we're going to do is the sides, which is the definition and the blending, the area. Now I could play this reed, and I guess I will, just to show you what it needs. See, it's rather strident. It plays, it's relatively easy to play. It just blow back a bit. But, you know, if you see my other videos, you realize that when a reed is strident like that, when it's very, when the tone is rather rough, it's because it's not vibrating down the sides enough, and we have to work on the blend and the definition. And this is where you can apply definition to the sides of the reed. You want to be careful to not scrape the reed, the tip of the reed, thin per se, but to remove from the back and then evenly push it off the front. because we're interested in definition. There we go. And it helps if your knife is sharp. This knife is sharp, it's working well. These are little strokes. They're light. I'm not removing a lot of material, and it comes off very lightly. Okay, there we go. We've added some definition to the reed, you can see it. And this is going to help with the tone quite a bit. Essentially the slope is still there. Let's clip it till it grows a C. So we'll do some more in the blend area. And you can kind of tell by looking at it, there's not quite enough there, at least for this piece. And let's this will make the reed, it will mellow it out because you're filtering these overtones so that they're running through a thinner part of the tip and the gouge. And now I'm going to scrape a little bit out of the back. But you want to emphasize the channels a little bit. And we'll do a little bit on this side, since I only removed the bark previously. And yeah, I am kind of stopping behind the heart, but it's a bit blended. This is what we have so far. Clip it, and we'll be very close. It's coming along nice. I'm just going to do a little more definition because it's screaming to me that it needs that. Even when I look at the tip, it's just not quite. You can see it's not quite enough right in the corners. So we're going to do a little bit more there. But I think if you approach the reed as in pitch before tone, slope before sides, as opposed to just scraping indiscriminately from the heart to the end, I think you'll have a better luck. At least you'll understand that, especially in beginner reed making, that certain things come before other things. And the pitch and the length of the reed dominates. And then you can work on tone. But all other aspects of the reed should already be in the gouge. You shouldn't be fishing around for a response and fishing around for all these other attributes to the reed. That's already in the gouge. We're just removing the cane to expose what's already there. Better definition, and we kind of have a little concave action going there because of the definition. And if you look, you'll see it. There's only one other thing that I would do to this reed. Let's clip it just a little bit, just a hair. At this point, you don't want to clip too much. Pretty close. Clip it just a little bit. That's close. Now this reed plays nice. The only problem is it leaks. So it's going to be forever a leaking reed. That is really a good approach when you're working with a reed, as opposed to just scraping, you know, from this to the corners, from this to the corners, from this to the corners. If you start by scraping a slope and you maintain that slope throughout the process, and then you get it to pitch, then re-slope, make sure it's vibrant, and then you can finish with the definition in the corners, off to the sides of the reed, like so. You're going to have really much better luck. Now, the last thing that I would do to this reed is just lightly dust. And I mean dust. You're barely touching. Dust the corners. Introduces a really beautiful quality to the reed, particularly if it's a vibrant reed. You're going to have a really nice, if it's super hard cane, you won't get the same qualities, but let's see if I get that. Yeah, it's got a nice quality to it. So try that. I think it'll help you, tremendously if you approach the reed that way. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, good luck with that.